Thank you, Greg Woods, for bringing us into service. Welcome, everyone, City Side, Who Live and Direct. Those of you out there, wishing you a happy holiday, happy Easter for those celebrating. I know those of you who also celebrating Passover this weekend. So you are gathered with friends, family, loved ones, and enjoying some time off for yourself. Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I abide as you show me all that I must do. You feel like standing up, you're welcome to do so. You can sit down, whatever feels right. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth or the stars or all of creation. God is creator, all in all, lead us to shine its light as we, as you so use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I abide as you show me all that I must do. Say, command my hands, what must they do? Command my life, it's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new, and God needs us to shine His light as we, as you so use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I abide as you show me all that I must do. All right, I need you to clap your hands, because if Keith was here, he would be clapping them loudly. Come on now. He's here. God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light. Oh, God needs us to shine its light as we, as you so use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I abide as you show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. And I definitely know, and we feel Keith's presence on that one. We feel Keith's presence. As Greg reminded me, I decided to switch the songs for today's service. talking to Aimee, Reverend Aimee, about what she was going to share with us today. This idea of renewal, this idea of hope, surrender, that all of that is packaged into as we walk into the next hour, the next minute, the next moment of our life, the next day, the next year, in the month. So this is one of her favorites, Rev Aimee's, as well as mine. I don't think you can ever go wrong with some India Ari. This one's called There's Hope. I said, back when I had a little, I thought that I needed a lot. A little was overrated, but a lot was a little too complicated. Zero didn't satisfy me. I knew it didn't make me happy. That's when I learned a lesson, that it's all about your perception. Hey, I knew what power of a superstar, so you act, so you feel, so you are. It's not about the size of your cup, it's about the size of the faith in your heart. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to pay to laugh. You better thank God for that. That's right, Terry. Come on. There's hope. What? It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to pay to laugh. What? You better thank God for that. Oh, I said, off in the back country of Brazil, I met a young brother that made me feel that I could accomplish anything. Is he just like me? He wanted to sing. He had no windows and no doors. He lived a simple life and was extremely poor. On top of all that, he had no eyesight, but that didn't keep him from seeing the light. He said, once in life in the USA, and all I did was complain. He said, living here is like paradise. You tell me paradise is in your mind. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. What? You don't have to pay to laugh. And what? You better thank God for that. That's right, city side, come on. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to pay to laugh. Say, you better thank God for that. Come on. I said, every time I turn on the TV, somebody's acting crazy. If you let it in, it will drive you crazy. But I'm taking back my power today, yes. Gas prices, they keep on rising. The government, they keep on lying. But we're gonna keep on surviving, keep living our truth and do the best we can do. There's hope. What? It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to pay to laugh. You better thank God for that. Oh, there's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to pay to laugh. You better thank God for that. Yes, and I said, stand up for your rights. Keep shining your light and show the world your smile. Oh, stand up for your rights. Keep shining your light, oh, and show the world your smile. There's hope.
That was fun. I know. It's so much fun to be up here with such great people. I love getting to do this and stand up here with great friends and have a great experience. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Cityside. Welcome, welcome. It's, as we say goodbye to winter, we say hello to spring. It's a very exciting time, so I want to welcome you. We here at Cityside are a New Thought spiritual community. We follow the teachings of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, and we are affiliated with the Centers for Spiritual Living. If you want to follow along with today's service, there's a QR code on the chair. I'm sure there'll be a QR code on the screen. And if you scan that, you will get our program and you can follow along with all the different things that are happening today, get some song lyrics, get yourself grooving and singing along. And we really want to welcome you. And if you're having a great experience and you really like Cityside, I hope you'll share about Cityside through social media and however you want to alert people to this experience, because we think it's pretty cool, and I hope you do too. So welcome. And today we have Rob Wozniak, our wonderful practitioner, holding vigil in spirit. He's not here in the room, but he's holding vigil for us, where he creates this container, this spiritual container that we can sit in the midst of and go deep in our spiritual practice and our spiritual experience this morning. So thank you, Rob. And our April theme is suffering, making sense when it makes no sense. And today our own Reverend Aimee Daniels will be giving a talk, The Expectancy of Renewal. I was very excited to hear this because I love this idea of sort of that leap of faith, that leap of just knowing that it's going to all work out, that it's all going to be good. So I'm really excited to hear Aimee's wisdom, as I always am. And so I would love to, we have some people in the room, people online, have a little bit of a community greeting. So say hello, meet somebody new perhaps, or say hello to an old friend. And this morning, I think our community greeting, if you need a prompt, the prompt is, what's your spring renewal? What does spring renewal look like for you? What's new? What are you looking forward to? What are you expecting in spring? So we're coming back together again, our beautiful, chatty, wonderful community. I will say that if you're online, you can probably hear and see people chitty-chatting. We hope that you'll come and join us in person and be part of this love that is just simply is in the room, and just connect with us in person. It's a pretty amazing experience. So I really want to make sure you feel invited and welcome, and I hope you will come and join us, at least from time to time, in person. And so as we kind of gather, get back into our seats, we're going to affirm our mission and vision. And I love this part because it keeps us centered, it keeps us grounded in what our purpose is and what our intention is. And so I believe it'll be on the screen, and I believe it is on the QR code. So if you want to join me in sharing the vision and mission, we envision a diverse and empowered community that is practicing unconditional love in action. Our mission is to create safe and inclusive spaces to explore and deepen our faith, grow in spiritual consciousness, and express our authentic nature.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Judy Randiger-Meza, and I'm here to offer a reading, a brief meditation, and prayer. So our reading today is from Spiritual Liberation by Michael Beckwith. No longer do I struggle against uncomfortable circumstances, feelings, and experiences in which I cannot see an immediate way out. I listen to their message and receive their gifts. When all seems dark, I know that I am in a development process that is guided and lighted by the Spirit within. I go forward in confidence and trust. I respond to the inner call of my spirit to go deeper within, to allow its transforming touch to reveal my wholeness. Something new is being born within me, and I yield to it. The Spirit within me knows what it is doing with my life. Darkness and light are the same. both give birth to my awakening. I am willing to become more myself through this process. My inner perception shifts, and I welcome the experience. I embrace it. These words that I speak are my declaration of rebirth. It is active within me now, and something magnificent is happening. With complete assurance, I know that the Spirit is for me and not against me, that life is for me and not against me. I am a child of the universe, here to learn to walk in the love of Spirit. I say, this shall not move me, and it does not. I am divinely supported, and all things work together for my good. So we'll now go into a brief meditation and then a prayer after. And so now, staying in that place of stillness, I speak a word of blessing over our service today. Just knowing and recognize that Spirit, Source, Love, Peace, Joy, all the words that I use to call God, that they are here, they are present, that God is with us here now, everywhere and always, in, as, and through me, in, as, and through each and every one of us. And so I just consciously unite with this presence, with this love and peace and joy, this wholeness, as we begin our service today, knowing that we are all one with this peace and grace and this love. And so in this connection, in this union with Spirit, I just know that our spirit, our service today just unfolds with grace and ease, and I bless it as it does so in each person here in the seats, all of the people who are watching online or who are connect with this later on. I just know that all is happening in ease and flow and grace, and for the greater good of each of us individually and collectively as a community. And so I bless all the hearts and hands who came together to make this service possible. Our tech team, who has had to overcome some challenges today, but always connects us both in the room and to those who are watching remotely. And I bless them for all of their dedication and their expertise. And I bless our music team, who comes so willingly and with so much love and talent each and every Sunday to lift our spirits up through song. And I bless Reverend Aimee, especially as she offers her talk today about renewal and rebirth. And I just know that each of us takes these words into our hearts and opens ourselves up to that which we most need to hear, that which we most need as we move into this time of renewal and growth. And so we accept that as our challenge individually and as collectively to open our hearts to growth, to renewal. And so I'm so grateful for this community, grateful this time of renewal and growth. And so I release this prayer. I call it good. And together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Judy. That was lovely. So for today's feature, I decided to have this idea of surrender and renewal. Patty Griffin's Up to the Mountain. I went up to the mountain because you asked me to. Up over the clouds to where the sky was blue. And I see all around me, everywhere I can see all around me, everywhere. Sometimes I feel like I've never been nothing but tired, and I'll be working till the day I expire. Sometimes I lay down, no more can I do. But then I go on again. I go on again because God asked me to. Some days I look down, afraid I will fall. Oh, though the sun shines,
Good morning, Cityside. I just want to start by expressing some appreciation to Greg for being here early to help set up the sound equipment, and Carlos for manning the fort in the back of the room. Dom is out sick today, so he's monitoring us online, and we just want to send some healing thoughts to Dom. So, okay, let's dive in. So this is a time of year where everything's renewing, right? It's my favorite time of year, actually, because all the flowers start to come up. And I don't know, does anyone else have daffodils in their yard? I have daffodils in my yard, and that always tells me spring is coming, even though it's cold. And it's cold in the room today, too. Let's just acknowledge that. Sorry, it's cold. For some reason, it's not getting warm in here. But this idea of renewal in nature, this is the way that nature works, right? It inherently has the wisdom within itself to know, like, okay, I'm a daffodil, it's time for me to come out, right? It inherently knows, and we see that throughout nature. And I want to work with one example in nature as a metaphor, and that is the idea of renewal that we see with a caterpillar, right? So what happens with a caterpillar? You know, when it's time, they build themselves a cocoon. It's also called a chrysalis. I like that word, that's a cool word. And when it's in its cocoon, it actually turns to liquid for a period of time. I don't know if everybody knows that, that's kind of fascinating. And right before it's ready to turn into this butterfly, or as it's about to emerge as this butterfly, it is, the chrysalis begins to become very translucent. And the way that you know that it's going to emerge, that the day it emerges, it has become completely translucent. And that's when the butterfly comes out. But if you try to break into the cocoon or it comes out too early, it's not going to thrive and grow. And I think that cocoon or that chrysalis is a great analogy for us to think about. Just, you know, we've been talking about suffering this month. You know, sometimes when we're suffering, we're sort of cocooned, right? Like we don't really know what's trying to happen in our life. We just know that it feels like we're in a dark place. And I like this analogy of like we feel a little liquid, right? We feel a little liquid when we're in those places. And we've all been at those places. You know, we've suffered for a lot of different reasons, as Reverend Darrell talked about last week, you know, fear, regret, loss of loved ones, loss of relationship, there's illness. And when that happens, we can feel like we're in a dark place. And it's easy to reject the dark place, right? I know I myself, like whenever I'm someplace I don't want to be in my head or in my life, I'm like, not that, I don't want that, right? Anyone relate to that? But spiritually, we need to be with what is. So it really starts with us being in the now moment and releasing our resistance and denial of what is. Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now teaches that now is the key to the spiritual dimension. And he cites all the great paths. You know, in Zen, we're taught to be so completely present that no problem or suffering, they would say nothing that is not the essence of you can survive. So in the now, there's the absence of time, right? All your problems dissolve, and suffering needs the element of time. In the Sufi tradition, and Rumi being one of the most famous Sufis, they say, Rumi said, past and future veil God from our sight. Burn up both of them with fire. So what does that point to? Like, have your attention in this moment, not in the past, not in the future, just in what's happening right now. And in the Christian faith, there's one of the teachings is, you know, the flowers are not anxious about tomorrow. They live in the now, and their abundance is provided for them by, you know, whatever your word is, spirit, source, nature, doesn't matter what you call it. Oh, there I'm back. Okay. I'm back. So, how do you know you're in the now moment? Have you ever had this experience of things just really slowing down? It's like as if time stops. That's how you know you're in the now moment. And we touch that sometimes in prayer, we touch it in meditation. You know, you might touch it when you're out in nature. Or I know for me, I've felt that now moment very profoundly at the time of people in my life passing, right? Because there's no place to be except that moment right there, right? There's nothing else that's more important that's happening. So, and I think when we're in the now moment, we have a deep sense of our own beingness, right? Just beingness, right? Like we're part of something bigger that is happening here. And so when we're in a place where we're rejecting whatever's happening, like when we're in this energy of not now, not this, whatever, I didn't invite this experience, right? You know, you ever been there? Like, I didn't invite this experience. Like, why is this happening to me? And this is where we need to just surrender and be with what is. You know, we need to invite our spirit into the experience. Your soul is eternal. You're going to survive whatever happens to you, even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes, right? Because the you that you really are is eternal, right? And this has been taught by all the great spiritual teachings over time. Like the you that you are is eternal, like your spirit continues. And it's so funny, even people who say they don't believe in something can believe that like our energy continues, right? So our spirit is eternal. As Reverend Judy read to us from Michael Beckwith, the key is to invite the messages and the gifts of the current circumstances. So no longer do I struggle against uncomfortable circumstances, feelings, and experiences in which I cannot see an immediate way out. I listen to their message and I receive their gifts. And when all seems dark, I know that I'm in a development process that's guided and lighted by the spirit within. And that spirit knows what it's doing with my life. In his book, Finding and Using Your Inner Power, Emmett Fox talks about this idea that we think about God and man in terms of this moment or a few years. Like we're so focused on what's happening right now that we have this inherent impatience as human beings to know where things are going, right? And we want everything to get settled quickly. And, you know, especially when we look at the world, like we look at the Ukraine right now, like why hasn't the higher power, whatever we call it, stepped in and done something? And I like what Emmett Fox says about this. He says, you're gonna live forever somewhere, right? I like that somewhere part because it doesn't try to define it. But you're gonna live forever, and so a year or 2 or 20 or 30 in the whole scheme of your spirit is not a lot, right? And sometimes the wheels of spirit are moving slowly, right? And we can't see where they're going. And think about a gardener. A gardener plants a garden, but they don't expect it to come up immediately, right? They trust that there's a process that's happening. And so one other line I like from Emmett Fox is, if it seems to you that in your own life you have not received your desserts, the answer that is that the end is not yet. The end is not yet. Every prayer is eventually answered, right? It just takes time. So your spirit's eternal. We want to take the long view, right? Let's take the long view. Whatever's going on, this too shall pass. This experience of being human is hard, isn't it, sometimes? It's like we don't ever want anything to change, right? And so this too shall pass. Whatever is going on, this too shall pass. And your spirit is eternal. Whatever is happening is there for you. And I want to touch on this idea of rebirth, because we're all constantly rebirthing ourselves, either consciously or unconsciously, or maybe sometimes we feel like we're in Groundhog Day and we're constantly living the same day, right? But we all have the potential to be rebirthing and renewing ourselves. And this idea has been taught also throughout time. In the ancient teachings, it was a common theme that was even before the Bible. Most of the stories of rebirth were about the cycle of the earth, right? The cycle of the earth. In ancient Egypt, there was the god Osiris, and he was murdered by his rival Seth. And Seth tore his body apart and scattered the pieces everywhere. And then Isis brought him back to life, and he ruled the underworld. And he's also was viewed as a god who ruled nature and the rebirthing every year. And really, the story of Easter, the way it's told in the Christian church, is very similar, right? We know that Jesus did live and that he was crucified, right? We all know the story. And the thing that's fascinating to me about the story that I didn't understand when I was little was I was like, well, how did he know he was going to be crucified? When I was little, it was very confusing to me. Apparently, I was very traumatized when they told the story at church, and I had nightmares for weeks, my mom used to tell me. But how did he know? Well, it was the context of the day, right? He knew that he was speaking out against, the common belief, and he was teaching hey, we all have this in us. It's in us. It doesn't come from an outside source. It doesn't come from a priest or anyone else. He was saying you can have a connection with, the spirit that created you. They used the word father a lot then, but let's just use the word spirit. It's the same thing. You can go directly. So it's not, he knew he was going to be killed. He refused to cease and desist, right? He's like, I'm not going to stop. This is my mission. And we live sort of in a crucifixion society. I hate to say that. It sounds so negative to say it that way, but today we wouldn't physically kill someone, but we might assassinate their character on social media, right? So there is this mindset of whatever I can't be with, right? Whatever I disagree with, I'm just gonna blot it out, right? And so that's really an invitation for all of us to just say okay, where am I still living in that, right? Where do I need to have a rebirth and just say I'm not playing that game, right? I'm just gonna practice the golden rule, and I'm gonna be kind even when I disagree with others, right? I'm just gonna be kind. So, what I wanna talk about with Jesus is, what did he know? Right? What did he know? What's the teaching we can take from that, since today's Easter? He knew his spirit was eternal. And he knew it was likely he was going to be crucified, right? So imagine knowing this is going to happen to you, But what did he do to get through it? He prayed, right? He went to the garden and he meditated. Right, and we also know he asked, if this isn't mine, take this cup away from me, right? That's human. Who wouldn't feel that way? But to me, what he really proved is that his spirit was eternal. Yes, he went through this terrible suffering. I mean, I can't even think about it. It's terrible to think about the suffering that he went through. And many other people, because it was a common thing. A lot of times people would be martyred if, they had a spiritual message that people didn't agree with. But he trusted that he partook of the divine nature. He trusted that his spirit would live on. And, we hear that he appeared to people afterwards, right? It's funny, Rich and I were at a funeral last weekend for one of his friends' dad, and we were talking on the way back, because he had been a preacher in the black church on the south side, and we were just talking about this idea behind what happens after you die? And I said, well, haven't you ever heard, honey, haven't you ever heard a story about someone who saw someone after they died? And he's like, yeah, I have. And like, Rich is a pretty rational guy. But so like, if you think about it just logically, like if the energy changed forms, right, that's what happened. But then it got turned into like, you have to be special and you have to be chosen and whatever, but you're all special. We're all special. That he wasn't actually teaching specialness. He was saying this is possible for everyone. You are an eternal being and you partake of that nature and you cannot be separated from it and no one can keep you from it. That was the real message of it. And to really live from your spirit. So what can we learn from this story also? Like he really taught oneness. I and my Father, because they used old-fashioned language, right? We're one, right? I'm part of this. And if you think about the spiritual path, we're all trying to integrate like our intellectual human self with our spiritual self, right? That's what he was teaching. Right? And the two should work together, but your mind should be the servant of your spirit and your heart, not the other way around. I think that's the lesson, right? That's the lesson. The mind should be the servant of the spirit. And the other thing is he expected his good. He had a state of expectancy that his good was going to come to him. Now, okay, you think about what happened to him, it's like, good, what good is going to come? But like he knew his spirit was eternal. He knew he was going to be free from his body. He had the expectancy that he could trust that, right? And I think expectancy is a key part of faith, right? In the early days of Ernest Holmes' teaching, I would say that well, I'll just tell you, I've been reading this book. I'm kind of a geek. The people in the Roots class know this. I've been reading this book by William Hornaday, who is one of the early people who carried on Ernest Holmes' tradition. And Ernest was with him for the first several years when he started his own center. Ernest never wanted a church or a center. This is a philosophy. So, but he tells all these stories about expectancy, and that one of the things he learned being so close to Ernest Holmes was that Ernest just expected things, right? Like, William would be all excited, like, hey, we got a check for $6,000 that's going to help us buy the building we want. And Ernest would be like, of course we did, right? Because he expected it. And he tells one story in the book that was particularly touching to me. So there was a young woman, and this was probably in the 1950s, and her dream was to be a dancer. And she was being raised by a single mom who worked nights. So when this young lady was about 16, she got a job dancing at a nightclub. She told the gentleman that owned it that she was over 18, and her mom had no idea that every night she was sneaking out, she was going to dance, and then she'd get home, and then she'd pretend that she had been home all night studying, doing her homework. And so one night she gets home from her little sneak out dance thing, and her mom's there. She came home from work early because she had a headache. So she got busted by her mom, and her mom, of course, went and told the nightclub owner that, her daughter was 16 and he was breaking the law. So that put an end to it. So this young lady then decides that she's going to leave home as soon as she's 18. She gets married, she moves out, she becomes a professional dancer. And what happened is she was performing, and the curtains are held up by something, and it collapsed and it landed on her, and she was paralyzed. And when it first happened, she was just devastated. She got her marriage annulled because she said to her husband, I'm paralyzed. I certainly don't expect you to stay with me. I'm probably going to be in a wheelchair my whole life because the doctors say I'm not going to walk. And she was sort of feeling sorry for herself, as any of us would, right? We'd be like, what the, right? And When she was a little girl, they had gone to some sort of community that Ernest Holmes spoke at, and probably someone who studied the philosophy. And she remembered some of the principles that she had learned as a child. And so one day, she was laying there and she's like, well, I suppose I could try. They're trying to get me to go to physical therapy. Maybe I could just get up and go try and see what happens. And so as she got up and she went to the physical therapy, she continued to get better. And she became kind of a star pupil of the medical world because she was able to walk. And they thought that that would never happen, but through, continuing to see what was possible and sort of focusing on where she wanted to go, she began to walk. The only thing that didn't recover, she had one arm that she couldn't use, that did not come back, but they had figured out how she could get around with it. So eventually she goes, she studies bookkeeping, she becomes a bookkeeper, she gets married, and then she gets pregnant. And she thinks to herself, how am I ever going to change a diaper with one arm? But then this thought comes to her, well, my neighbors have kids. I have time. I could go over, I could ask if I could practice on their babies. And so she figured out that she could take care of a baby by just trying. Like, she followed the idea that came to her. And so when her baby was born, she was at the hospital, and she was standing outside waiting to get picked up. And she saw a lady standing there that just looked confused, like she didn't know where she should go. And so she goes up to the lady, and she figures out the lady doesn't have a place to stay. And she said, well, you can come home with us. We have room. So over time, she and her husband ended up taking in all these people. They added on to their house. They took in all these people who needed help. And they named it, I think they named it like Bright Side or something like that, about looking on the bright side of what's happening. And I just share her story. It was kind of a long version of the story, but because I think it's a great example of how we can take what is happening to us and say, okay, where I am right now, maybe the only thing I can do is, try to see if I can change a diaper, right? That's what I can do right now, or I can go to my physical therapy or whatever it is. But then just to continue to follow the leads that keep showing up, right? And to have expectancy that as you are putting into prayer and into your intentions and into your beingness, as you are putting in the spiritual qualities that you want to call more of in your life, that the spirit that we are part of is responding to you, to have the expectancy of your good. That's what I love about that story. It's a simple example, but, we all have stuff happen. Howard Thurman reminds us that during a dark period, we have the ability to walk in remembered radiance. What does that mean? It means we've all had times in our life that we're happy and positive. And so if we're having one that's not that, we can bring into our mind memories, that remembered radiance, and it reminds us of our spiritual nature. Michael Beckwith calls it remembering to remember. And if we can even just get a glimmer of it, we know that over time things will begin to shift because we begin to remember the wholeness that we are, the wholeness that we're part of. And the other thing I was thinking about driving in this morning is about like the suffering of the people in our lives. I just want to presence that because, I was thinking actually about my own life and about a time where I just wish someone would have put their arm around me and told me I was okay, but no one did it. And somehow it all worked out anyway. But it's really hard in our lives when we see other people suffering, isn't it? Like I was thinking, one of my nephews lived with me for 5 years, and he was struggling part of that time. He was really depressed, and I learned from him that I just needed to be there to listen to him, right? You know, like I can't fix someone else's suffering, but I can be present with them. And that's what we do for each other. It's just to be present, you know, just sit. We used to watch Game of Thrones and order a pizza. I'm dating this, whatever. But here's the point. It's like, you know, we have to start where we are. And that's true whether we're talking about our own suffering or someone else's suffering that we're somehow part of, right? Start where we are. Mary Morrissey teaches, start with where you are, do what you can from where you are. And Mary Morrissey herself almost died when she was about 16. She had this child, you know, and at that time it was a sin to become pregnant outside of marriage. Thankfully, that's not true anymore. But she was having kidney failure, and a Christian Science practitioner came to see her, and you know, Mary didn't have a spiritual path at that time, but you know, the woman said to her, "Do you believe you can be healed?" And she said, I don't know, because the doctors say I can't." And the woman said to her, "Do you believe that I believe that you can be healed?" And she said, "Yes, I do believe that you believe it." And then she started to study spiritual, you know, teachings and things like that, and she got better. You know, they told her she wouldn't live to see her son go to kindergarten, but she did, and it's, I don't know how many years later, 50, 55 years later. So my point in sharing these stories is just, you're a spiritual being having a human experience, right? And our opportunity is to really turn whatever is happening to spirit and invite whatever spiritual quality into it that you want to have more of in your life, because you are an eternal being. You already partake of the wholeness that is spirit. And our job in our practice is just to remember this. So we're going to move into prayer now. And I just invite you in your own mind, thank you. Getting a little bark in our prayer this morning. I just invite you, you know, in your own mind, whether it's a way that you feel like you are suffering, just to invite the energy of renewal in for yourself, or if you want to hold someone else in prayer, just inviting the energy of renewal in for them and just claiming the spiritual quality for them. Love, grace, freedom, peace, ease, joy, whatever that quality is, just invite it in. And just speak it in your mind's eye. Just, I know, I affirm that this quality is the truth of my experience. Just invite that in, that quality which you are calling forth. Just trust that the Spirit within you knows what it is doing with your life. This eternal Spirit, this presence which is never an absence. Just invite that into your beingness. And I just know in this moment that we are all one with this presence. We are one with this eternal life. We are all one with this love and this timeless nature of being that all the great teachers have taught. The spiritual truth is love. And so from this place of oneness, I just speak my word for each person hearing my words. And I send this word out to the world, a word of healing. A word of healing, a word of love, a word of a renewal. I just know that the spark of the divine in each and every one of us is calling forth a deeper and deeper expression of the good that is the truth of our nature. And I just claim and know a shift in our individual consciousness and our collective consciousness. Just knowing that there is healing happening, that We are the energy of love, and we bring that forward both for ourselves and for others. This is what I'm knowing and I'm claiming renewal, I'm claiming rebirth, and I'm claiming perfect love and perfect joy in this moment. I'm just so grateful for this, so grateful for this internal renewal that is happening now and in every moment. I'm so grateful for the outward expression of this in each and every person's life. And I'm so grateful to know that this prayer is fulfilled now. And with so much gratitude, I simply say, and so it is. Amen.
It's me again. Hi, welcome. Thank you, Reverend Aimee. Such a powerful talk. I told you, like that leap of faith, that expectancy, it's so powerful, right? It's so great. So I'm here to talk a little bit about our offering, our opportunity to support and love up the Cityside community. And you know, one of the things that I know can happen for me sometimes with money, you know, I can get very spiritual about friends and relationships and work and all those things, and then money can seem different for some reason, but it really isn't. So just invite in a beautiful, expanded consciousness around money, and just knowing that as you give your gift, you are receiving. Just holding that in mind, that cyclical giving and receiving. And so at Cityside, we are a community-supported organization, which means that the dollars that we collect from each other and we all contribute is what makes this happen. We don't have any other sources of revenue. It's us. So I know that as you love and enjoy and want Cityside to thrive and continue, so do I. So I just invite you to make your gifts this morning. There are several ways to make a gift at Cityside. You can follow the QR code. You can text to give, which is probably the most common way and most popular way. And so we text 312-757-8111. Just text the word give, and it'll prompt you and say, hey, how much do you want to give? And you put in the amount. And if it's your first time, it'll ask you to put in your payment information. And I always like to add that if you've already set that up, but you want to change your bank account, your credit card, whatever, just text the word update, and you can change your details. So you're not like locked in. And so with that, I just invite you to speak our giving affirmation. We say this every week just to kind of center ourselves in our intention. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
As I know that I am blessed, I know that each and every single one of you are blessed on this day. And And so I want to share a few announcements. If you're here for the first time, I really want to welcome you. I invite you to sign up for our newsletter so you can e-news. It'll help you understand everything that's going on and what's coming up and lots of fun things that are going on here at Cityside. I want to share with you a couple of things that are coming up. So next week, Reverend Mark Anthony Lord will be here. And what I want you to know is that he's doing after service at 11:45 a workshop, Spiritual Healing, the Divine Guidance. So we were just talking about healing this morning a little bit. And so if you're having an experience of wanting to invite in greater healing, and healing can be physical, it can be about relationships, it can be about work, it can be about money. We were just talking about money. So I hope you'll come. You know, Reverend Mark Anthony is such a beautiful soul, and you know what I know about him. What I want you to know about him is he's just he continues to always get deeper and deeper in expressing his truth and his love and his spiritual wisdom. And so I'm very excited about this, and I hope you'll come. I believe it's just in person. I think the logistics of live streaming it was something we couldn't work out. So be here, be in person, really take in the wisdom. You know, it's Mark. We're going to laugh. We're going to dance. We're going to have a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then starting on May 7th, we have a class, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. And that's with our own Reverend Linda and our practitioner, Krista Brumberg. And if you know Linda and you know Krista, these are two powerful women. They have tremendous consciousness and tremendous wisdom to share. And I would absolutely be in that class, except if I take on one more thing, I'll be a puddle on the floor. But I want you guys to go and then come and teach me what you've learned, because they are amazing women and not to be missed. And then on May 22nd, Rob Wozniak is having his workshop, Transcending Addiction. And so this is for anybody who may be looking to transcend an addiction that they have. And of course, it can be sort of the things that we might expect, like alcohol or drugs, but it can also be addiction to, you know, Netflix. It can be addiction to really anything. So if you're looking to transform something in your life, that may be a great workshop for you to attend. And then finally, what I want to share is, in loving memory of Keith Jacob, we are having a memorial service. So Keith has been an integral part of the Cityside spiritual community, and his memorial service will be held on May 1st at 3 p.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Evanston. There'll be more details on our website. It will be live streamed, so if you are unable to attend in person, you can still experience the service. And the fund to support Keith's family will remain open until after the memorial service. And there's a link in the bulletin and more information online. So I hope you can join us in celebrating his marvelous, amazing life. So special thanks to our Sunday team for making today's service possible. Our dear friend Dom, feel better, we know your wholeness. Greg, Tiffany, Patrick, Maria, Carlos, Reverend Judy, Jeffrey, Paige, Reverend Linda, and of course our own beautiful, wonderful Reverend Aimee. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Carlos, for holding things back as well. You're welcome to stand at this time. Shake your limbs out, do some stretch, and sing along with me. I'm going to sing about bright, shiny days right now. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. That's right. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Sing that again. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. That's right. gonna be a bright what? Bright what? Bright shiny day, that's right. It's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. Come on. Look around, there's nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. One more, city side with me. It's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. Thank you, Greg Woods, for holding down the sound and the keys and the groove and all what you do. Thank you, everyone. Happy Easter. You are celebrating. Have a beautiful Sunday. And I hope by next week it's 60 degrees.